Don't ever believe that people can't change. Don't ever give up on human beings. Some people never do change. There's no question about that. But the potential for changing and dropping really bad habits is within all of us, and it can happen in an instant. For whatever reason, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. If he has a readiness to rid himself of this alcoholic rage behavior of his, which she said, other than that, he was a wonderful husband. He was terrific. You know, it was only if he got drunk, he would become so abusive that it would be impossible to be around him. She was afraid and so on. And I talked to her a bit about it, and I had her listen to the transformation tapes. And I just got a letter from her yesterday. And she said, I listened to what you said, and he contacted us to see his little boy. And she said, I had made up my mind I was never going to see him, but I said, why don't you come over? She said he has absolutely no desire to have alcohol anymore. Now, this has only been about 3 months now. But she said, we're happy, we're back together again, we're going places as a family, things have never been better. And she said, and he has absolutely no desire to drink and hasn't had anything. And she said, I just can't believe the wonderful change that has taken place. And she said, and the only reason I allowed it is because you had said that to me that afternoon at the pool. I went to get in my car a few months ago, and somehow someone had gotten this card, and it was on the my front seat. And I couldn't believe that it was there. And it said, I have been all things unholy. If God can work through me, he can work through anyone. And it was signed St. Francis of Assisi. This is a quote from St. Francis of Assisi. I mean, here's one of the people that we revere as a saint saying, I have been all things unholy. I mean, if a person who has been all things unholy can become a saint, anyone who has been an externally directed person can become an internally directed person. I have a quote. A lady sent this to me in the mail. She said, I think this will really be important and impactful for you. She said, this is a rough draft of Leo Tolstoy's will. It was composed on March the 27th in 1885. And here's what he said in his rough draft of his will, Leo Tolstoy, the great novelist, who became very spiritual toward the end of his life. He said, furthermore, and in particular, I ask all people near and far not to praise me. I know they will do so because they have done so in my lifetime in the most unseemly ways. But if they want to study my writings, let them look carefully at those passages in them in which I know the power of God spoke through me, and make use of them for their own lives. There have been times when I felt I was becoming the bearer of God's will. I have often been so impure, so full of personal passions, that the light of this truth has been obscured by my own darkness. But nevertheless, this truth has sometimes passed through me, and these have been the happiest moments of my life. God grant that these truths should not have been defiled in passing through me, and that people might feed on them, despite the superficial and impure form which I have given them. I mean, this is from a man who wrote such great, great novels, and then toward the end of his life began to really believe that his work was reflecting of God's will, and he looked back on his earlier life and he's talking about, can people change? I see the same thing in myself. I mean, people listen to me, people revere the work that I have done. They too often treat me as some kind of guru, which I am not. I mean, I feel like St. Francis. I mean, I have been all things unholy. I've lived a life of experimentation and checking things out, and am not proud of every single detail of my life. And yet I feel in the stage that I'm in my life now, that very often, despite all of that, and people come to hear me in churches, and I speak in front of congregations of thousands of people all over the world. And I think, what am I doing in church? You know, these walls are going to crumble. And yet I know that in many ways I'm speaking God's word, God's will. There's nobody out there that can catalog how people change. It isn't a formula. It isn't something that we can put down in paper. People change in moments. People change in instants. And some people change over a gradual period of a lifetime and so on. But a person who is externally directed and doesn't like it and realizes the potential victimization that's in that. That is, you're a victim of whatever anybody else or anything outside of you is controlling and how it is controlling you. Then changing that is just like changing your mind. You just have new thoughts. You just take out the old thoughts and you put in the new. But the first thing you have to do is know that you'll only see it when you believe it. You start with the belief that I do not have to be directed by anything outside of myself, and that God is within me, and the infinite and divine power that makes me human and gives me sustenance as a human being is always there. So I have inner power, I have inner direction, and everything that every great human being has ever done, I can do as well. All things that any human being can do, I can do as well.